If you don't think male privilege exists, you are wrong.
Yes, I see the light now. Your argument is bulletproof. No. There's no way I'm doing another Laci Green video. Fuck no. I've already done her like twice this year. You can't make me do another one. It's inhuman.
Gender bias is often ignored.
Sorry, that's just a natural autonomic reaction I have to Laci Green.
Gender bias is often ignored because it seems invisible and subjective to those who benefit from it.
Yeah, almost as though it doesn't exist. You realize, of course, no, of course you don't, that such is the normal logical implications of what you are saying. If it cannot be perceived by anyone other than the person claiming its existence, it generally doesn't exist. So glad we got this cleared up, Laci. I'm thrilled we were able to handle this without me having to listen to you for more than a few seconds, cause down that road lies the path to madness.
But trans men have...
Wait, why are you still talking? Wait, there's more to this? I hate you, Laci. Okay, let's do this.
But trans men have experienced both sides of the gender-divided society.
Steve, you want to take this one for me?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
No, dumbass. No. That is not how it works. No. Just because you were once a girl and you stapled on a penis does not mean that you have great insight into being a guy, even if you can pass as a guy. There is a whole lifetime of hormonal reactions, how you're raised, how society treats you, what society expects of you, your very biology, and how you grow that goes into being a man and manhood. Transitioning into a man is not suddenly going to give you the experience and understanding of one. And nothing will prove my point more than listening to all of you trannies in this video. What would even make you think that they know anything about being men? Or that they're suddenly privileged just because they became men? Do you think that they acquired some sort of mystical penis powers when they got the operation? Seriously, watch the real video first and just look at all of them. They're all still chicks. They all still think, present, and have the same mannerisms of women. Well, specifically feminist women, but that's neither here nor there. What's funny is that even though Laci just said that these guys get the male experience because of privilege because they've experienced it, well, we'll get to it later. Let's just carry on and you'll see what I mean. Oh, and actually, while we're on that subject, didn't you just finish saying that privilege is invisible to those who have it? That being the case, if these trans men had been on both sides of the gender fence, then they would actually be blind to both male and female privilege. Actually, they would be blind to trans privilege as well, so they would be triple blind. So why are we even listening to them? By your own admission, they know nothing about male privilege. Do you people ever listen to yourselves? Is there no video I can find where you people do not butt-fuck your entire argument within the first few sentences? God damn it.
So I'm gonna let them explain male privilege in their own words.
Yeah, let me translate this for those of you who don't speak feminese. Here are some people I personally picked out who will completely support my preconceived ideological position with unprovable anecdotes. I mean, seriously, Laci, did you really expect anyone to think that you weren't going to just choose people who already toe the party line? I would like to point out, however, that, again, by your own admission, they cannot have experienced male privilege. Oh yeah, people. Gaze at the face of privilege. Or, Ross Perot's meth-addicted bastard offspring. Look, feminists, this is not the face of privilege. This is the face of someone who, if they had been a guy, would have gotten his ass kicked in high school.
Male privilege is the bullshit idea that men are better than anybody else.
Did you really have to bleep that out? I mean, you already showed them Laci Green and let her speak. I fail to see how you could offend or traumatize someone more than that. But seriously, who says that men are better than women? That doesn't even make sense in the context of the gender roles that you double dumbasses parade around as being ubiquitous to society. The entire basis of the gender roles is that men and women have different roles because men and women are naturally better at certain things. Women are supposed to raise children because they have a natural gift for child rearing and empathy and such. If we thought men were better at everything, we wouldn't be having women do those things. See, it's a matter of efficiency. If we thought men did everything better, then we would want to have men do everything. We would have men take on all the responsibilities and jobs necessary to create and maintain society, and we would just let women stand around out of the way and never expect them to do anything useful. We would vastly lower requirements and expectations on women who wanted to do things and give them constant aid to make up for their deficiencies. This does not sound like traditionalism or gender roles or whatever you want to call it. You know what it does sound like, though?
Male privilege is the ability to move about the world in the way that you want to.
I want you to remember that one, because it will be relevant later. While we wait, though, what prevents women from being able to move about the world the way they want to? Oh, we're conveniently not going to even mention that? Okay.
It's the experience of being left alone and free to be yourself.
Remember this one, too. As a side note, do you guys think you could give a bit of a pause between the speakers? You're actually talking over each other at points. I mean, I realize you're trying to Gish Gallop, and so talking fast to cover for your bullshit is kinda how it works, but you're supposed to at least be coherent about it.
Privilege is also like the absence of experience.
Really? Then your feminist tranny English must not be very much like my Earth English. But therein is the point, isn't it?
As a man, I have the privilege of getting on New York City subway train at 1 in the morning and don't have to worry about a man wagging his dick at me. That is a male privilege that I like.
When a simple 10-second Google search can completely disprove your claim, you might be a feminist.
The first time I noticed I had male privilege was when I was walking home from hanging out with a bunch of friends who happened to be women. They had expressed being a little worried about walking home in the dark, and while I was walking, I realized that I had no worry in the world about being talked to or stared at or followed or assaulted.
Okay, here's where my point becomes made the most clearly about these men trying to tell us about male experiences. I want you to listen to what Boy Chick here says again for a moment.
First time I noticed I had male privilege was when I was walking home from hanging out with a bunch of friends who happened to be women. They had expressed being a little worried about walking home in the dark, and while I was walking, I realized that I had no worry in the world about being talked to or stared at or followed or assaulted.
Okay, so he had no fear of being talked to or assaulted simply because he was a male and male privilege prevents it. Now then, wait a minute. He actually did just claim mystical penis powers, didn't he? Fucking hell. Anyways, he is unafraid because he thinks that as a man, he's not going to be targeted for violence, unlike his terrified friends, and he thinks this because he was raised as a girl with this fear and saw that men were not afraid of these things, or at least assumed they weren't. The flaw in this is that what he doesn't understand is that men are overwhelmingly the targets of effectively all types of crimes, with the exception of 2 or 3 subsets of certain crimes, and even those are kind of iffy. Men are not scared of this, however, because men are naturally more inclined towards risk aversion, and most importantly, are more inclined towards emotional discipline than women. Men are not as scared of the everyday dangers of the world as women are. Now, this is, of course, partially a genetic thing as well. It's through the perspective of a woman looking at men that he's able to think that women have these problems and men don't, and that women have them in greater number, because men don't go around complaining about them that they don't have them. But men have these problems as well, and in fact other problems besides. For instance, if he was an actual man, he would understand that in that situation with his female friends, if something were to happen, someone were to attack, it would be up to him to deal with it, because he is the man, so it's his job to keep the women safe. This is why his female friends can afford to be so terrified of violence, because they don't have to be strong and protect themselves. Their protection is a burden that is laid upon and given to them by the men in their area, but he truly thinks that it's the men who are privileged in this scenario. He's basing this off of his flawed perceptions as a woman. Being able to pass for a man actually puts him in much more danger and gives him a greater social burden of responsibility, but the stupid bumblefuck meth breather can't comprehend it because gynocentrism is a hell of a drug. This is what I meant earlier about all of these so-called men. They're not men, they're chicks, in every way that matters except the genitals. They think like women, they act like women, they understand as women, specifically feminist women. It's the common theme throughout everything they say in this.
So a man could just walk down the street and no one is going to bother him, no one's going to ask him to smile, no one's going to ask him where he's going, no one's going to ask him if he's married, no one's going to ask him if they can walk with him, but this is something that I know women experience every.
See what I mean? None of this happens to men. No one ever stops to talk to a man on the street or to ask him something. When I was at work last week and a group of drunken young women were sitting out front yelling at everyone passed by and making lewd comments at an old Asian man to harass him, totally didn't happen. When I was walking home 3 nights ago and this one guy came up to me, started walking beside me, and began trying to strike up a conversation completely uninvited, figment of my over-masturbation addled imagination. But even if we give these people the benefit of the doubt for the moment, and this is what really annoys me about this whole thing, this is the best privilege that you could come up with. You realize you just said that men are privileged because no one says hi to them on the street. You get that right. Women get a reduction in sentencing across the criminal board, but men don't get asked to smile. Women get shelters from domestic violence. Men don't get looked at on the street. This is the great mystical penis power you think it exists. You trivial, small-minded. Ugh.
Post-transition life, my god, walking down the street is so glorious, I can actually think.
So, you're saying that having a penis boosted your IQ? I mean, obviously not by much, but you think you got smarter.
First time I ever experienced male privilege was on social media. I've always been the type to express myself and talk real crazy. And when I did it prior to transitioning, it wasn't okay. But the minute that I transitioned and everybody looked at me as that male figure, it was like, oh man, that's hilarious. I'm like, hey guy, I've been hilarious all this time. So what are you talking about?
You were hilarious all that time. Kind of like you think that you understand male experiences, right? Maybe you're not the best judge of yourself here. Or, here's the thought. Maybe, now that you're in a body that feels more natural to you, you're more confident, which would by extension make you more outgoing and more charismatic, confidence being one of the primary attributes that draw people to you socially. Perhaps being a male is the proximate cause, as opposed to the higher level distal cause. I'm just saying, that seems like a much better explanation than mystical penis power, which isn't even an explanation on your part, it's just an assertion. But anyways, and again, that's the best you could come up with. That's your vaunted male privilege. You have a space on a you have a space on a national platform with the potential to reach millions of people with your message. And this is your A-game material. And you wonder why people think you're all a bunch of whiny bitches.
An unexpected aspect of male privilege for me was being taken way more seriously than I was before. And
really? You look and sound like that and people took you seriously. Like, at all.
And it's funny because I have all the same ideas, still thinking about the same things, and yet sometimes I would literally just be talked over or laughed at. Now people will often quiet down.
Yeah, can't really relate. I'd still be inclined to talk down to or laugh at you. But again, do you think this might have had something to do with the newfound confidence that you get from now being in a body that you feel suits you better? Because you realize that everybody gets talked over if they're a wallflower. As with almost everything you people have said, this is not related to gender. How many guys did you know in school who sat in the back of the class and never really said anything, or put themselves forward? Look at the typical portrayal of the male nerd, or the teenage loner, or just look at anything else in society, beyond your mystical penis. Men get laughed at for their ideas all the time, especially by feminists, especially by other men. Mockery is a part of debate. You are literally taking something that almost every man experiences and saying it's a privilege that he never has to experience. For fuck's sakes, just look at any mainstream media piece about Trump and tell me all about how men are always taken totally seriously and never mocked. Look at Bush, look at Obama, Stephen Harper, Trudeau, Bill O'Reilly, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, all people that are never made fun of or criticized or dissed for voicing their opinions. God damn it! Do you people even reality?
And having experienced that from both sides of the spectrum.
You mean one side of the spectrum. As I said, you're all still effectively chicks. Get a false rape accusation or two, some women throwing glasses of wine in your face and calling you a little dick in front of the bar crowd, or work a few construction jobs to pay for child support on a kid you never get to see, and then we'll talk.
As female and male, I call bullshit on that right now.
Yes, I agree. Everything you are saying is bullshit. I totally agree, so why are you making me listen to this?
Male privilege and sexism isn't just a problem for women, but it's also about liberating ourselves.
Male privilege is the ability to move about the world in the way that you want to.
It's the experience of being left alone and free to be yourself.
Masculinity is very diverse. Masculinity is what it is to you. You don't.
Then who are you to tell me this? I mean, if masculinity is what it means to me, then it's not diverse if I don't want it to be. So you are effectively telling me what masculinity is right now. See the problem when you rely on nothing but ideological stupidity to prop up your arguments? If you get to decide what masculinity is because it's subjective, then so does everyone else. And if they don't consider you a man, then they are perfectly within their rights to do so, and you have no leg to stand on in order to disagree. So suck it, girly man.
You don't have to be a brute. You don't have to be an athlete. And my masculinity looks like a man who likes puppies and babies.
And there's absolutely nothing unmasculine about liking puppies and babies. You just think that there is because, again, you know nothing about men and masculinity. Fatherhood is one of the most primal aspects of masculinity. That's why in media, whenever a baby is born, one thing they always do is pass the baby to the father, who holds it to him in wonder at the child that he has brought into the world. One of the most cliched tropes used to make people feel good and heartwarming in media is the sight of a father with his children or child. It's also portrayed as one of the most filling aspects of being a man. Except, of course, apparently, here in tranny feminist dipshit land, where everything is reversed. And one of the most primal symbols of manhood, symbolic of the nurturing role that men have always been required to play in our society, is now totally not a man thing, and is now being used by misandrists to vilify men and be appropriated by a collection of gender-confused twinks drunk on propaganda and sipping a double-double of the dumbass drink.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
I was in the club this night and my brothers are around. I think it might have been Single Ladies. Something came on and I'm like, oh, the single ladies, the single. And they go, you're a man now. Men don't wild out to Beyonce like that. And I said, but it's music.
It's gay. Note how your friend tells you that no guy dances to Beyonce, not to music in general, which you try to kind of slide down to, but to Beyonce. If you'd have been rocking out to AC/DC, they wouldn't have said anything. That's because Beyonce sucks. Every guy knows that Beyonce sucks. The only ones who like Beyonce are chicks and gays because they both have shitty taste in music. Your friend was simply pointing out that you are not behaving like a man, which is what you are trying to portray yourself as. Badly, I might add. And what does this have to do with male privilege? Now, let me ask you something here. How many women do you think would want to date a man who dances around like a fruit to chick music? You were supposedly once a woman. I'm sure you at least talked to one at some point in your life who had sex before. Do you think that any of these women that you know would have looked at this?
Like, the single ladies, the single.
And gone, would you look at that guy? My pussy is quivering and drooling like a starving dog inside of a 20-pound piece of hamburger.
Take me, Mandingo!
No? Well, then you know why guys don't do it.
Male privilege is the ability to move about the world in the way that you want to.
It's the experience of being left alone and free to be yourself.
There's no one way to be a man. There's a spectrum of masculinity.
No one said you weren't. That doesn't mean, though, that every way is the way to be a man. And again, maybe it should be men that decide that, instead of people like you who have never had any kind of experience with being a man. Maybe it's just a little presumptuous of you fuckers to try and tell men how to be men.
And just, be chill.
If a guy wants to really understand male privilege and understand what it is, talk to women.
But I thought trannies knew best, because you've supposedly been on both sides of the fence, remember? You people said that in the very beginning. That was the entire fucking premise of the video. You see how we went from tranny knows best to listen to women? You see what they did there? If you want to know about male privilege, then ask women, or women who became men. Men, on the other hand, they can't know their own privilege because it's invisible to them. Men are guilty of having privilege, and they have no ability or right to defend themselves from the accusation. You just heard them say that. Privilege is invisible to you if you have it. Therefore, if men have privilege, they cannot know that they have privilege, but women and trannies can see it, or rather they can if they're feminists. If say a female MRA was talking about privilege, they wouldn't listen to a word she said. But feminist women and trannies can see it. Feminist trannies. So you must believe them, and if you don't agree with them, well, that just proves that you have privilege because it's something you would never be able to see. It's Kafka trapping at its finest. They have completely defined men and their thoughts, ideas, or experiences out of this conversation as being instantly of no consequence. Forget what men think about masculinity or what men are. Listen to the women. And those trannies who are essentially just women? Yeah, theirs is the voice of wisdom. Anybody think that they would be good with the idea that only men should be the ones telling women about what female privilege is or what femininity should be? Didn't think so either.
Step back, listen to what other people are going through, ask them what they're going through, and I think you'll see that the world doesn't run exactly the way you think it does.
I don't think you're quite smug and sanctimonious enough. You may want to do a retake on that one, and try to add in a little more hypocrisy there. Remember, this is a feminist video.
You're doing nothing wrong by having privilege. It's just what you do with it that matters.
That seems to be the feminist equivalent of, it's not the size, it's how you use it. There's nothing wrong with having this thing that we totally say you have and that you can't say that you don't have, which gives you an unearned advantage over everyone else, at least according to us. But if you don't use it in these certain prescribed ways, then you're a bad person. But we're totally not shaming you. Also, feminism is about equality, OJ didn't do it, and pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
I'd like to thank all of
Sorry.
our guests for giving their time and thoughts on this issue. We'll see you next time.
I'd say thoughts might be a little overly generous of a description. Still, I only had to listen to Laci for about 20 seconds, and that's a definite win in my book, so later, bitches.